Greetings, Marvelous Ones. It is I, the Supreme Marvelous Iggy, back with another part of Shovel Knight. Now we enter the spooky town that is Spectre Knight's lair, the Lich Yard, I believe it's called. So, if you're like me, you may have chosen this level first because it looked, more interesting than, say, a typical Knight's Castle. And this level is definitely the harder of the two. Definitely the harder of the two. There's invisible ghosts right here that you can't kill. There's darkness level. There's a darkness section towards the end. It's basically, and if you're the kind of person who gets flustered easily, this may ultimately sour your experience. But I hope it really doesn't, because this is truly an amazing game that you should continue to play. But this is sort of where the game, I don't believe, does a good job of telling you how to play the game. This is more of a level that, okay, it's expected that you went to Pridemore Keep first, and this is sort of the first level where it's telling you, okay, those things you learned in the first two levels, now it's time for application process. It's basically, this is a pop quiz, bitch. Time to turn up. Did you study or not? And I love that. It gets a little bit crazy towards the end, but overall I think it does a great job of, like, whether or not you're going to enjoy the difficulty of this game. By the way, I did mess that up. You don't kill the skeleton guy there, and you can use him to jump on up, and then again, it's just more gold. There's nothing up here, so if you miss it, it's fine. But again, if you want as much gold as possible to get everything as quick as possible, don't pass it up. What's funny is that every time you destroy a cross thing, for the most part, it will reveal blue ghosts, and again, those are not, you cannot save them. What's interesting about this is that, like King Knight, Spectre Knight was one of the DLC campaigns announced, and while I wasn't the biggest fan of Plague of Shadows, Spectre Knight's one kind of intrigued me because he, out of the original Knights of Order of No Quarter, he was the one who I thought was the coolest, from his design. Like he has a big scythe. I love characters with scythes. I don't know why, they just look cool. And when they first announced him, there was a certain aspect that you'll find out when we get to his boss fight. I'm like, how are they going to do that? And what they do is really amazing. I'm not going to spoil it because it's a prequel to this game. But it's like Metal Gear Solid 3. So, like, it'd be like if you played it first, you're going to have certain things spoiled at the end of this game. It's really weird. But thankfully, you get it for free when you buy just Shovel Knight Treasure Trove by itself. It just comes with it. You don't have to pay extra. Although, weirdly enough, when the Nintendo Switch first launched, in almost 2 years ago at this point now, almost 2 years ago, it'll be before 2 years before I upload all this, but you could actually, because the Switch didn't really have the biggest of libraries, you could actually buy, and you still can buy it, you can still buy Shovel Knight Spectre of Torment by itself for like $7, and I've played all of Spectre of Torment, and I thought it was a really good game. But I'll get back to that in a second. But as you can see, this level invokes darkness, and it's really hard to see. And you will die a lot. Even like me, who, I mean, I'm not good at platformers all that much. But sometimes those shadows can be very tricky to design, or sometimes you are trying to keep a track of an enemy, and you jump over a pit, and then you get knocked into a bottomless pit. It can be very difficult, and requires you to wait. It requires you to play slower, which, if you're like me, you just want to go, kind of bull rush through everything. But that's not really an option with this one. You have to take your time. Thankfully, it's not the entire level, but it's more towards the latter half, and that's when it can get really tense. I think we're going to actually come up to a section right now, as soon as I figure out how to, dig up these plants. So tree brushes. Yeah, right here. So you can't, and there's no shadowing. You literally have to wait, and you have to guess. And you're gonna see in a moment, like, I get super, like right there, I got super close to dying. It's like, Jesus Christ, man. Ugh. And again, and I'll to get a musical note. Like, I didn't jump, and it's hard to tell if you jump unless you're, you're super high, or if you get damaged, your sprite will flicker. But if you risk doing that, you might be doing that over a bottomless pit, or you might get knocked back. Let me just say, like, it'll test your metal, especially if you're not used to this kind of stuff. I actually, and so we have these enemies right here. I don't know what they're called, but I kind of like that. Like, their big ridiculous helmets are so heavy. But for some reason they don't just destroy the skeletal frame, but they will lower this platform that's seemingly held up by corpses. As I just noticed that right now, like you can see that, like when the thing goes up, they're happy, and when it goes down, they're like, oh. They remind me of those things from which I almost died right there. That, as you can see, I mistimed my jump, and I could have hit the spikes, and spikes are instant death. Don't do that. I think it was A Nightmare Before Christmas where there's like in the opening montage, there's like skeletons that sing ah, you know, sort of things like that. So. I just noticed that right now, just paying attention. Like you can clearly see it, and it's just. I think this is why I think I'm going to do post commentary for now. You don't notice. You can notice things more when you're not having to worry about the gameplay 100% all the time. You can just worry about analyzing things. But again, you know, it does similar to the other levels. It does a great job of showing you, introducing a gimmick, applying the gimmick, and then adding more to the gimmick as it goes along. You know, it does that very well. This game does this very, very well. Some might complain it makes it too easy, but to me, I think it's fine. There are ways to make it challenging. And here comes a weapon, tool that is probably the best one of the best ones in the game. Probably the tool you're going to abuse the most if you're a new player, or if you just want to not deal with bullshit. It's the phase locket. As it implies, it allows you to become briefly invincible. And what's cool is as soon as the animation ends, you can quickly use it again, so you don't run the risk of it, you know, getting hurt right away. There's no cooldown timer. It just relies on how much magic you have, which I like. I think that's cool. And it's gonna come helpful for certain challenges later. And you know, sometimes you just don't want to deal through stuff, and when you have enough magic, you're just gonna want to just bowl through shit, you know. I always wanted to know, you know, sometimes when you play video games, you just want to get through the nonsense. I know I've done this section 100 times. I keep dying at the same thing. Let me just get to that point, you know. That's why people use save states nowadays. And I swear to God, I thought I died there. I swear to God. I'm curious though if anybody's gotten all the musical notes. Does it do anything other than get you money? Like, I'd be curious to know if that happens. Those poor skeletons. But his level is pretty good. It's about medium-sized length. It's nothing too difficult, nothing too arduous. But again, it's where the challenge. If anything, this level is where the challenge begins. For most normal players, and this will seem like bullshit hard for some people. One thing I didn't point out in the previous episodes is that you can actually use the fishing rod to, whenever you see those sort of glowing like lights in certain sections of the level, you can get one of two things, I believe. You can either get the golden fish again, which is more gold, or if you say have a triple chalice that's empty, and I think it's all random. I don't think there's a certain way to get it. If you get a triple fish to come out, he'll either refill it. Now you don't get to choose what you get. He'll fill up whatever's empty. So he may give you an invincibility one. He'll basically give you one of the three, and that'll either help you or hurt you. But it never hurts to fish. So anytime you see those glowing spots, just drop your lure down and make sure you're not surrounded by enemies, because then you'll get knocked back into the screen, knocked back into the abyss, and nobody wants to be knocked back into the abyss. Cthulhu's waiting for you there, man. You don't want to be in there, or whatever other Lovecraftian monsters on there. Which, by the way, those are fucking terrifying. This part isn't too bad. The darkness isn't too bad. You generally know where you're at all times, for the most part. It's just so tense. It makes, again, if you take out the light, if you take out the darkness aspect of this level, it loses a lot of its challenge, because otherwise it's just basic, and I like that, because I know I've played some games where it has to add that extra layer of bullshit that you have to deal with. I'm like, I'm already dealing with darkness and enemies coming at me that can't die, so like, why you got to do this to me, And then you still even have these shrinking platforms, but they're not that big of a deal. You just gotta make sure to jump up every now and then so you don't get swallowed by. And I think we're actually at the end of the level. It's not too long. Again, it's one of the earlier levels, so it's not super long. And this is the Spectre Knight himself. And this is why I thought he would be a difficult thing to translate. Because look at how huge he is. Like, how are you going to play a level with that? You know, like, considering based off of Plague Knight, the levels that you play in both Shovel and Plague Knight, or Shovel and Spectre Knight, rather, are all sort of reworked for their tool sets. But they actually shrink Spectre Knight down, and he looks more like Shovel Knight because basically it's before he becomes this sort of entity of death that he is in this game. But I just love his design, like the red cloak, the scythe that has. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be blood, or maybe it's the reflection off the gold, but I think that's pretty much supposed to be blood. But I just love characters with cloaks are just so cool. I love the animation of how he spins it and just floating like a specter. You know, it's so awesome. Which some people I've heard were disappointed of how he plays in Spectre Torment because he's not floating and he's not omnipotent. But I think if you were to play as this version, that wouldn't be fun. There would be no challenge. There would be no intrigue to it. Plus, the campaign for Spectre Knight is actually really good. It's my personal favorite. It's only second rival to Shovel Knight in terms of gameplay and story of what it tries to do. Plague Knight, I need to give it a shot again because when it came out, it's very weird. Like Spectre Knight and Shovel Knight's campaigns share a very similar, fast explorer level. They're mechanically different, but they feel similar. Versus Plague Knight's entire mechanic system is so different from the two that I think a lot of people, including myself, didn't fully understand or grasp, and it got mixed out. And it got skipped over by some people, and also other things were coming out at the time. So I'm planning to revisit it. I don't know about a let's play of it. I have to beat it once at least, but we'll see. And he loses his cloak, and you can actually see a bit of, if you've played Spectre Torment, you can see what the character kind of looked like before. Now I don't know if that was like, that could be like the Mandela effect where he always looked like that, or is it more of the fact that maybe Wayward patched this secretly and then they changed the sprite? That's possible. It's entirely possible. Who knows? At this point, it's too hard to tell because there's no way to find the original playthroughs of Shovel Knight, or no way to play it again. And of course, I love this music that plays. And now you got enemies that come up. This is actually a really good place to get gold. But you have to prioritize, and it'll kind of show you what kind of player you are. Like, especially as Shield Knight comes down, are you a greedy motherfucker and are you gonna keep getting gold and let her fall, or are you gonna stop what you're doing and let her fall? And I think I almost let her fall. I think I did, but I didn't. And I like how he kind of like struggles unless you actually hit the jump button, kind of giving him night terrors and everything like that. And of course, I think this only happens twice, but you get meal tickets. So if you either kept dying or just didn't want to do meal tickets, you're given a free one right there. And then that opens the world map to our next three bosses. Mole Knight, I don't remember the underwater one, but I'll say his name later. But we're going to go back into town real quick and enjoy this scenery again. I love his little animation. Every single time he come in with new musical notes, he's just dancing. And I'm wondering, like, dude, how long are you doing that? Like, are you just doing that all day until I arrive? Like, what's going on? Or is it only like within, I'm like in 500 kilometers of the town? And for some reason, I bought 2 meal tickets. So I'm not sure if he makes you 2. I think he makes you 2. No, he only makes you 1 at a time. Yes, and he throws it. Okay, yeah, and then so your life is... pretty much, if you play it right, you can pretty much max out both your health and your magic before you get to the second latter half of the game. And now we're going to get to one of the funnier Easter eggs in this game, which is this dancer. Oh, I love it. And you get, of course, that's your reward. You get another another piece of note. So again, if you ever want to watch her dance, you know, hear that little chippy music again, you can do that. I wonder why Black Knight's shovel was getting bigger. Then it hit me. See, that one's generally funny. I'm sorry. That is generally funny. But you know, so now we're getting into the second half of the game. The game's going to start getting harder. It's going to start getting more difficult, and then a certain other thing is going to come up. That I'll get to when we get to there. I keep forgetting I need to show off the amiibo functionality, but I haven't done it at this point. But we're gonna tackle this thing. It'll keep moving. I think it's always gonna be a right at Pride and Work keep every time you play it, because I never remember it being anywhere else. And this is basically just an auto scroller. Think of it as a bonus room, or bonus icon, I guess, that'll show up, and that shows up and basically a way for you to get money. And especially if you haven't died at this point, or if you've died and you've recovered, you know, your more money before you died, you're gonna get a good amount of money, setting yourself up good for the second half of the game. Although there is actually an achievement in this game if you beat the game without spending any money. So that means no meal tickets, no expending in your magic, you know. So again, if you want a true challenge, that to me would be the hardest challenge right there, is doing both no checkpoints. You can't speak for some reason. Doing no checkpoints, and also you have to deal with the fact that you're gonna have like a 3 heart run, and your magic's gonna be at 10 forever, giving you very limited. This is another challenge room. It's called the Phasing Forest. I don't know why it's called the Phasing Forest, outside of you have to use the phase locket. But this basically shows you that you can, with the Phase Forest, anything is possible. You can walk on spikes temporarily. And again, as soon as you feel like the phase locket ending, and you always can tell because it's gonna make the noise. So as soon as you hear that noise, bam, just turn it on, and then that way you'll never have to, or at least you shouldn't have to worry about, you know, losing your invincibility, unless you mistime it, in which case that sucks to be you, bro. And there actually is an achievement for collecting like certain amount of gold on spikes. So I don't think you can replay this level for that stuff, for that achievement. But as you go along, it'll just accumulate. And as you can see that I died here. These birds have serious knockback. So just be careful than that. Just do that. The game wants you to do that. So just use the invincibility locket. It's not, you're not a coward for doing it. You're not a lesser player for doing it. It's a tool that's given in the game, so abuse it. If it lets you abuse it. You earned those choices. You've earned that right. But I think that's gonna do it for this one. Again, not much. Not a very short level, but a very fun level. But next up, we're gonna tackle Plague Knight, possibly my least favorite stage this entire game. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and remember, no matter what, stay marvelous. Have a good day, everybody.